Howdy, and welcome to the Post Stamp Podcast. Discussion about old and new records that we love, that we think are relevant today, that have achieved and inspired us. And man, we're so humbled, honored, and excited to be together this week talking about A Coat of Many Colors by Dolly Parton, the 1971 release on RCA, Dolly's 8th record. We're just really excited to be talking about it here with you. So I've got Austin and Grant. What's up, boys?
Hey, what's up?
Yeah, we're excited to be talking about the legacy and creation production of this album, again from 1971, and really excited to talk about what it meant in 1971 when it was released and the legacy of that and even what it means today. And so I think just first thoughts on this record, first time, had you guys listened to this album before, or were you kind of going back to it for the first time, or what was your relationship like to this record?
I've never listened to any Dolly Parton specifically.
Oh, really?
Wow. Yeah.
Even like in passing, Jolene.
I've heard songs,
right.
but I've never sat down to listen to any of it.
Yeah. It's wild. That's really wild. Grant?
I had never listened to this album in full. Knew a couple tracks on it. Really, really surprised with just the overall quality of the album.
For sure.
I thought, okay, I'll probably dig 3 to 4 tracks out of the 10. I really thought it was great as a whole.
I found this album to be deeply dynamic for what it was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think on the surface you can see it and see the short track times and kind of say, oh, this is just 10 singles that they cut to be made for radio or to get her on the Opry in the 70s, or that she's just made to appease Porter Wagner or whatever's going on in her career. And but this is somewhat of an individual breakout for Dolly. At the beginning of the 70s, she's kind of been existing in Porter's shadow on his show for a few years. She's recently, 6 or 7 years deep into a move to Nashville from East Tennessee. And this is like one of her biggest moves, kind of breaking out and finding her own as a songwriter, as a musician, as a singer, as a guitarist. She's so dynamic on this record, which is really sweet. As you guys were listening, were there any like big emotive like feeling things, or were you kind of attaching any Tennessee memories or thing? I feel like it's a pretty nostalgic piece, from the first track, Coat of Many Colors, on. It's like a very heavily memory and nostalgia, childhood type album. Did you guys have any thoughts or any of those things kind of brought out in you as you listened?
Something that stood out to me, not necessarily musically, but just all the songs have some kind of theme of like woman to woman relationships, whether it's daughter to mother or woman to woman trying to steal man. That was something that was interesting to me.
Yeah.
I just loved the narratives in each song. I don't know. I feel like a lot of different albums that I listen to, I just kind of get wrapped up in the music. But I really lyrically enjoyed this album. A lot of storytelling, and that was important.
Yeah, I think the nature of folk and country in the 60s and 70s, some of the best music is narrative in nature, and it creates a story that maybe wasn't even true to Dolly or her experience. That's something that's interesting to me about this, is some of it's autobiographical, and then other aspects are kind of these characters that she's like deeply immersed herself into and written. But there's something in each piece, even as a white man in 2019, I can still kind of connect to, whether it's heartbreak or family issues or spiritual issues or wonder. There's just like really connective poetry that's going on here, and it's really sweet. Again, 1971 on RCA Victor. It was nominated for Album of the Year, 1972 CMA Awards. It's also come up on Times Magazine, 100 Greatest Albums of All Time. It's on Rolling Stone's Top 500. And apparently even Dolly has said that Coat of Many Colors is maybe her favorite song that she's written. So there's a clear, and we were talking about earlier how she's kind of having a cultural moment right now, which is amazing.
Yeah.
It's funny to think about how unifying Dolly Parton is.
Yeah, it would not be like that. Just doesn't make sense.
Right.
You wouldn't expect it.
There's this weird unity piece, Dolly Parton, of like, doesn't matter if you're northern, southern, eastern, western, USA or international, straight, gay, white, black. There is something in Dolly's songs for everybody. And it's really sweet and really great.
Or just her personality, even.
Yeah.
I was going to say, yeah, I mean, she's carried that on into modern day, and I think that's what's so awesome about her is she hasn't had her day in the sun yet,
right.
So to speak. I mean, she's still really, really active.
Yeah. So let's go through the track list real quick, just quick thoughts. So on the first side, we've got starting with Coat of Many Colors. I think my earliest memory of just this idea of a Coat of Many Colors is going to Dollywood as a kid, kind of pretty commonly. And there was always a feature, a little small museum about Dolly. And this was one of the things that was featured, was always either a mock or the real like Coat of Many Colors that she had from her childhood. It was like this celebrated, right? It's a celebrated aspect of her and her identity and her kind of like being, there's this weird, beautiful mixture of pride and humility. She's like proud of her humility, which doesn't make any sense, but she has these like authentically poor roots in East Tennessee, growing up in the mountains, growing up with a ton of siblings, moves to Nashville with nothing to her name, but wears that on her sleeve. It doesn't just leverage it for fame, but just genuinely embodies that in like her whole career. And this is like a great song and starting place to kind of emulate that. Did y'all have any thoughts on this track?
I love this.
Yeah.
This song. It's really good. What stood out to me is just how tight and almost clockwork the guitar, bass, and drum are on this.
Yeah.
And her vocals just kind of like floating on top of it the whole time. It's really nice.
Additionally, I enjoyed the personal connection, the personal story. I grew up hearing the song with my grandmother. My grandmother's a huge Dolly fan. She actually met Dolly's dad one time in his front yard. She just stopped, and I don't remember the whole story. I wish I had called my grandmother and asked her before
East
we
Tennessee,
did this.
brother.
But
telling you what,
yeah, she stopped and asked him, something, and he said that he was Dolly's dad, and just kind of interesting. Like,
wait, just like presented that fact unprompted.
Coat of Many Colors.
Yeah, Coat of Many Colors. She said, "Did your wife make the Coat of Many Colors?" Sure did. No. But yeah, she met his dad, which was
that's fun. That's really fun.
Really neat.
Yeah. Yeah, and then it moves on to Traveling Man, which we were talking about is just a wild bait and switch. Again, a lot of these songs on this record are narrative in nature, and they're these deep, immersive stories that weave you in and out. But this one especially is just a wild Houdini magic trick that kind of leaves you shaking your head in a fun, entertaining way. Do y'all have thoughts on this piece?
I really liked the music in it. I mean, just the band in it is really, really grooving.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no, her vocals don't hide the band at all in this one. I feel like Coat of Many Colors, she can, it's like, it's definitely about her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But this song, is definitely a full band, work.
I feel like Dolly was pulling out a little bit of Bob Dylan influence too.
Yeah.
On this one.
I agree.
There's just some halfway sung, halfway spoken verses on here that sounded like something from Highway 61 or Bringing It All Back Home or something.
I agree. I totally agree. I think when I first heard this track, that was the biggest influence I kind of felt was Bob Dylan, which was more on the folk than the countryside, but there's still just so much influence there. But I think there's something also to be said about no female at this time was in the country sphere, was kind of bringing those folk elements like so violently into the, commercial country sphere, which is really sweet.
Yeah.
And I think on the surface you would see Traveling Man and think it's about the story of some man who's on the road and as an artist, but then it technically kind of is, but it's more from the perspective of a woman who's been harmed by that than somebody who's living that, which is like pretty submersive and creative. Moving on to My Blue Tears, which was a single from this record. Pretty great track. Yeah. If I Lose My Mind, short track times here, a bunch of 2 minutes. And then side A ending with Mystery of the Mystery, which, just beautiful poetic pieces. Side B, She Never Met a Man She Didn't Like. Early Morning Breeze, The Way I See You, Here I Am, A Better Place to Live. Pretty good rundown on this record.
Yeah.
And it's not the most in tune, singular, composed piece of music. It kind of is this feeling of different singles that are cut off. There's not like one singular narrative that's going beginning to end, but I do think it's like organized and cut well and pretty fun.
Yeah. It does feel like there's a like hard to identify, but definitely their arc from Coat of Many Colors through to A Better Place to Live.
I see
Especially those two feel like they're connected just from like a place of empathy and caring about your fellow man kind of thing.
We'll get into some of this when we talk about the legacy, but this is still the era of Vietnam and the hippie movement.
Yep.
And what's funny to me is the country music wasn't necessarily associated with the hippie or anti-war or folk movement. There was a lot of obviously support from country musicians and artists, and this is kind of starting to break away, but there's almost this guerrilla warfare type anti-war speak in art that's kind of coming from Dolly when she's just like speaking to unity and hope and love, kind of as she's like wrapping up this record on Better Place to Live and other tracks. So it's not like middle fingers flying like the war is terrible and killing everyone. It's more like, hey, let's be all together and really great and happy. So I think, it's not necessarily making this like brash political statement, but it is this like fun, calming, hopeful, unifying thing that Dolly just is. And that's 40 or 50 years ago that she did this, and it's still relevant and applicable to today, which is really sweet. Do you have any other thoughts on the tracks or track listing on this?
One thing that stood out to me on a few different tracks is you can hear the Appalachian bluegrass poking through in a few spots.
Yeah.
And like the gospel influence that she would have been around growing up.
Definitely.
I think those especially shine in Early Morning Breeze and A Better Place to Live. And you also get kind of it's funny, lyrically you get folk in those, like you're feeling more of that, but then musically, especially in A Better Place to Live, and Early Morning Breeze, I feel like you could just kind of see this one ending that era. It's just still on the tail end. The other thing I pulled was Mystery of the Mystery, just like the layout of that song. I don't know why I see it in a movie, like in a saloon, in a movie, like it's dark, it's dingy, but there's a couple guys over in the corner playing pool, and then like the bar's got like 3 people at it, and it's like 50 feet long, and like that's just the song that's on.
I love that.
I don't know, like that's
that's the picture that goes in your head. I had a similar response to Early Morning Breeze. I thought it's just so poetic.
Yeah.
It almost encourages the listener to be fully present with like what's around you in the moment. The idea of like early morning like elicits that in so many great ways, but she just really hones in on that in a sweet way, which is, again, I think speaks to the dynamic nature of this record, because there's these crazy piano ballads where she's like beautifully screaming and harking over this music, and then there's also these subtle poetic moments, and it's all just like kind of proving and showing her sharp musical teeth that she's wearing, but all the while, right, like all the while she's still wearing her proud roots like on her, and she's not ashamed of like her Appalachian roots. She's like wearing that. She's not ashamed of growing up and singing in the church or whether like she's kind of wearing that on her sleeve as she's like doing all these musically achieving things. So yeah, that's great. Any other comments? Did you have any like fast facts about this record, or any other like quick moments you thought were worth mentioning?
I had one.
Yes.
She wrote Coat of Many Colors on the back of a dry cleaning receipt that was inside one of Porter Wagner's jackets.
It's incredible.
And Porter Wagner found it like years later and had it framed.
That's so incredible. I think the back sleeve of the vinyl record is just the lyrics for Coat of Many Colors. And I think with that in mind, with the whole record, it's really the inclusion of biblical themes and biblical stories kind of like as a leverage point for her narrative songwriting, I think is a really sweet creative tool. And it wasn't original to her, like people have been doing that, but I think she just brings that home in a really sweet way.
Yeah.
I mean, what's more humble than writing a hit song, like one of your first like huge top 10 songs on the back of a receipt, and that kind of like helping to launch like one of the biggest careers of all time. It's incredible. Like, And again, it's just East Tennessee to me. It's such a beautiful, down home, friendly place, and I'm really proud to call Dolly one of our own.
For sure.
All right, are y'all feeling good about categories or any other thoughts?
I think one thing worth mentioning we had talked about earlier was just the difference between what we did last week with Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
And their first album, not a lot of originals. This album, all originals, written by her and Porter. I just think that's really cool.
Yeah.
I did have a fun fact as well.
Oh, bring it on.
So Mac Magaha played fiddle on a couple of tracks on this album. I actually had some like country memorabilia that was signed by him, Porter Wagoner. I didn't have Dolly, but a guy overseas ended up buying a lot of it.
No way. What?
Yeah, he said it was something that he was related to Mac. It was like his uncle's relative, some cousin or something like that, and he had grown up around him and meeting him, and then he moved to somewhere in like Oceania.
That's wild.
It was really wild.
That's so random. I love that.
But yeah, it was really neat. So
yeah,
like a hand fan and like a program.
One last thing I'll say. I love the sub 30-minute length of the record.
Yeah,
I feel like there's such a modern push to make an hour and 10-minute, hour and a half, especially like modern rap and hip hop. It's like, oh, let's make an hour and a half record so we get all these streams and stuff. But she gets in, says what she needs to say, achieves what she needs to achieve, and then gets out. And it kind of like leaves you wanting for more, which is really great.
But at the same time, it doesn't feel short.
Right.
Like you don't feel like you've been gypped out of the last 15 minutes of the record.
Yeah.
Like you would on a modern record that long.
Definitely. All right. Well, let's move on to categories. I think we got some good contenders. I think it's special. We don't have like a deeper personal relationship with this record. There's not like any clear cut best tracks or maybe there is, but we'll get into that. So, categories starting with the best track. What's your favorite track from the record, Austin?
I feel like I'm going to be lame and obvious like I was last week and say Coat of Many Colors. It's just a really well told narrative and just some solid music.
I agree.
Nothing too flashy.
Grant?
I think Early Morning Breeze. I don't know. I just could kind of, she walked me through exactly, where she was, what was going on. And yeah, I felt that one.
I dig it.
Yeah.
Kind of a dark horse here, but I really love If I Lose My Mind. I think it's great. There's that like vocal build or key change that kind of just like picks up, and I think it's my favorite track on the record.
The key change is actually one of my notes as well.
Yeah. So it's so great. Yeah. And I mean, we spoke to some of like the crazy musical depth that was unanticipated, but there's some great moments that thinking about her kind of walking into a studio in like a male driven environment and time in country music in Nashville in the, late 60s, early 70s. It's just wild to think about her like helping to orchestrate and kind of like hopefully taking charge and just making all these like beautiful musical demands and moves. It's really sweet.
Yeah.
And she like had experience like playing with Porter's show and everything, but her kind of like stepping into her own here is like really great. But yeah, I like If I Lose My Mind. Other contenders for best tracks. Y'all got any other cases for any other tracks on the record?
Traveling Man's just a lot of fun.
Yeah.
You can't get around it.
I agree.
It's just that twist at the end that it just leaves your head spinning.
It's just enough. I mean, nothing says country music like, going after being wooed by a man, and then next thing you know, your mom goes off with him. I mean, we've all been there.
Have we?
She slurped him. She slurped him from Dolly.
Oh gosh. Again, Dolly's like great, like her ability to kind of create a character and write herself into it is really, really fun.
Yeah.
Is it If I Lose My Mind, does it have the butterfly reference on it? Or is that Mystery of the Mystery? But that became like one of her, I should know and look it up, but
I actually thought that was Early Morning Breeze.
It maybe is Early Morning Breeze. But that it's funny because, and I don't know if she'd used this lyric before, but that like emblem of the Dollywood or of the butterfly would become such a huge emblem like for her moving on, which is really a sweet thing, which the butterfly has like so much significance. But it's funny to see these little creative fingerprints, which would kind of become a huge aspect of like her musical identity. And even like the coat of many colors, like that's like she is such a like a colorful, vibrant, fun, bubbly spirit. And she's like always worn that, and it's fun to think about her mom giving her this coat when she's a girl, and it's like kind of carried with her physically, obviously, like as in her childhood, but also like it's such like a symbol.
Yeah.
Even like butterfly too, right? It's like this colorful symbol of who she would become and be for so many people.
Yeah. I mean, there's a reason she chose to go back years later and write a song about it.
Right.
And name an album after that.
Yeah. Yeah. So some good contenders for best track. I think the easy choice is Coat of Many Colors.
Thanks for
yeah.
It's nice and warm under this bus.
When Dolly when Dolly says it's her favorite song, it's kind of hard to disagree with her.
Yeah.
But
so shut up.
All right. Okay, what's your contender for best musical moment? What do y'all got?
So mine was the key change and If I Lose My Mind.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why it was noted. I just kind of as a whole, like as a theme in A Better Place to Live, I love the mountain music feel. I mean, her roots kind of shine there. And I like that as well.
I think just the bass in Early Morning Breeze all the way through. I feel like it's so unique for a country song in that time to open up with a bass line like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very satisfying.
And it's very 70s as well. Like it's very 70s pop rock. And I like that there's that diversity in the music.
Yeah.
I took a couple notes on this. I think the guitar intro on Traveling Man is really fun.
Yeah.
And again, it's just like subversive. Like if you see Traveling Man on the chart, you're like, oh, this is like a Bob Dylan or Johnny Cash, like rough and tough record. But then it's like totally from a different perspective. Even the guitar count on the front, and you're like, all right, this is going to be a Chet Atkins, like down and dirty song. And then it's just opposite of that, which is really sweet. A little magic from Dolly. I think the little like drum fills on Early Morning Breeze are really fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then there's some fun ballad like piano intros on the B side, which I didn't expect to remember. Kind of going back to this, there's a couple tracks that it's just Piano City kind of leading into it.
Yeah.
Which is again just like so dynamic and supplemental to the guitar stuff that's going on. And then I think my contender for best musical moment, and it's more of like a vocal performance moment, but Dolly's vocal on Here I Am.
Yeah.
So beautifully powerful.
She's working hard.
Yeah.
And it sounds effortless.
I know. And we were a little nitpicky on the, like her vibrato in her voice, but I think she's like so confident, and it's like vibrato without the operatic feel, which is really sweet,
Yeah, I'll say on that, it's one of those things that personal preference, it immediately stands out and kind of pokes me the wrong way. But the more I listened to it in its context, I was like, this makes sense. This works really well.
Yeah. Any other contenders for best musical moment or groove or instrumental supplement to this record?
Nope.
I would love to go back to this era in Nashville and just be a fly on the wall and sit and just
Before
watch
all the bachelorette parties.
But this could quickly turn into a commentary on the demise of Nashville as a actual artistic center. But I feel like this era of music would be so sweet to go back and just see Dolly in a studio. I think she's the only female that's credited on the record. Obviously her name's above the top, but you've got like male engineer, like male producer, Porter has like contributed some songs, male technician. So she's like,
what about the background vocals?
Oh yeah, there were some like background female vocals, but
I don't think they're even
right.
It's like a group that's credited. I don't think it's even like individuals.
Yeah.
But I would love to go into a studio at this time and just observe this era of Nashville.
Yeah.
I think it'd be really sweet and really fun. But and yeah, and here I am also. I mean, with the vocal performance of Dolly, there's like some fun like background like harmony vocals, which are sweet too. Yeah, let's move on to this. Has so many. We could talk for 2 hours about influence.
Oh,
Both like what influenced this record, influenced Dolly, and then also kind of the fingerprints that it's left today. But who did y'all kind of consider as influences for this record?
I mean, I've got already mentioned Bob Dylan, which is maybe a more subtle one. I don't know if anyone has ever said like, "Oh, Dolly was specifically influenced by him," but I mean, Patsy Cline is kind of all over this.
Right.
You got Carter Family, like any kind of bluegrass gospel stuff is just sprinkled in everywhere. Too many to mention. Loretta Lynn,
Yep.
Hank Williams.
I think June Carter and Loretta Lynn, Patsy Cline, they were all kind of walking or slowly jogging so that Dolly could colorfully run through the 70s. And they were still releasing music and all these things, but I think there's this slow, beautiful country that's happened in the 60s.
Yeah.
And then Dolly's kind of like really hopping out from this metaphorical cocoon and becoming this like loud, colorful symbol.
Yeah.
And it's great. And she's wearing a coat of many colors and she's this beautiful icon of like loud but dynamic, deep ballad country music. And it's really great. Yeah. Did you have any other like influences outside of that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously classic country.
Yeah.
Hank Williams was definitely one that that came to mind for me. But yeah, and then I mean, I think just growing up in the area she did, I mean, there's probably a lot of people that we don't even know about that just played instruments around her.
Yeah.
You know, that just played music, which really filled her childhood with music.
Yeah, I think you have to say general Appalachian music.
Yeah.
And like front porch.
Yeah.
Banjo picking music. And then also you have to say Sunday morning gospel hymn music as well as like influences. And it's just really sweet. Like she managed to kind of wear those things and not be ashamed of them and like connect with an audience in a beautiful way.
Yeah. And significantly make both of those things like meld into its own thing, which every great artist ever has been able to do, is like take a couple different genres, smash them together,
and somehow,
and it's its own thing.
Yeah. They're making gold out of different minerals, which is great.
Like there's no song on this record that you could say, "Oh, that's a gospel song. That's a bluegrass song." But you can hear those things in a lot of it.
Okay, so albums or artists that this record has influenced.
One of the more surprising ones I saw when I was reading up on this is Stevie Nicks.
I love that.
Which you can almost hear on some of her stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So Fleetwood Mac or Stevie Nicks solo, or I mean, I guess both.
Probably both.
Yeah.
Anything that Stevie was primarily involved
in.
Like Landslide is a big one.
Oh, yeah. That's great.
Yeah. Rhiannon probably too. I mean,
and again, that kind of like brings up the conversation of folk versus country because there's for sure though the Rhiannon.
Yeah, I mean
Jolene just song about another woman.
Yeah,
that's such a theme of this era of music. But I even think us talking about the intro of Traveling Man and kind of this harder feel that manifests and like gives space for this like beautiful female vocal to kind of arise. I kind of think of even Edge of 17.
Yeah.
Where it's just like it's like this crazy intro.
Yeah.
And
but it sounds like it could have been on this record.
Yeah.
If the instrumentation was tweaked just a bit.
Yeah. I wrote down just like some modern like country artists as well. Like I don't know if you guys like Casey Musgraves. But Casey Musgraves' record from a couple years ago is really incredible and kind of like I think the step that it kind of took is like a mixture of country and more like synthy pop alternative type things. It's like that step is similar to me, like what Dolly did with kind of this like country step
Mhm.
that she took, which is really sweet. But I just kind of see like similar attitudes. Like Casey's kind of like her, like one of her early records was like Same Trailer, Different Park. It's kind of like this unabashed just wearing of like who she is and like not being ashamed of that, which is really, really great.
Yeah.
And like Brandy Carlisle as well. Brandy Carlisle's incredible and just such a talented musician and producer and vocalist. And there's just I just like see clear parallels, even like on like a attitude or spirit level of just kind of like I'm gonna get up and do this and do it my way and tell my story. And
I think somebody similar to, I don't know if you guys listen to Casey Chambers. She's an Australian country artist and you know grew up around music with her dad. And a lot of her song, I mean, her styling is definitely unique and different, but the storytelling is just the same. You know, I mean, you just have that deep connection. She's telling a story and you understand it. I think you feel that with Brandy Carlisle as well.
Yeah. And you have to, I mean, I think any female country artist who's popular in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, like would hopefully say like, yeah, I was influenced by Dolly Parton, Martina McBride, Reba McEntire,
Alison Krauss, Miranda Lambert.
Right. All these like great artists kind of have to have some just fingerprints of Dolly. So yeah, and I think like if you speak about influences or legacy as well, we did talk about there's this 2015 movie that's Dolly Parton's Coat of Many Colors kind of narrating the story, which is fun. It kind of like shows that it's still a relevant story that people can connect to today and people like love. People, I mean, everyone and their mother just attaches to the story of like an unlikely hero. And Dolly's kind of that. She's just like Dolly's the under the cupboard Harry Potter of 70s country music. Oh man.
Well, but really, I mean, you just mentioned an artist from Australia.
Yeah.
That you can tie back to Dolly.
Yeah.
So it's like, shout out to her for broadcasting from Sevierville to the rest of the world, literally.
I mean, that kind of is a great segue. I think the legacy of Dolly is so huge, but there's this great podcast that just came out this last year called Dolly Parton's America. And one of the hosts, his father is from the Middle East, and he talks about how his dad loves Dolly's music and like has a personal relationship with Dolly and everything. And there's just like these attachments that are international. And I don't think it's specifically because nobody's like listening to this record or listening to Coat of Many Colors, listening to Dolly's story, and they're like, oh yeah, I can identify with growing up in a cabin in East Tennessee.
Right.
But they are identifying with the story of humble beginnings, the story of like coming back to talk to their mom and wanting to be a kid again. They're identifying with this. I want to be a part of something that's like greater and bigger. Like I'm trying to figure out, like there's like this like spiritual longing that's like this thread throughout this record, which I think is really sweet and honest and great. And
which this might be a tangent, but one thing that what you were just saying reminds me of is at the end of Coat of Many Colors, she talks about trying to like help her classmates understand why she felt rich, even though they were laughing at her for her coat. And then she like ends the record with this better place to live, like call to everyone.
Right.
Kind of making a push for that, for everyone to pursue that.
It's really sweet. Okay, next category. Is this Dolly's best album? Thoughts?
I cannot say.
Yeah, I'm not versed enough for sure.
So, if you look at where this is kind of ranked or rated, it is kind of higher among like her records is just like collectively. It was like it's on Rolling Stone's top 500. It's on Time Magazine's top 100 of all time. You know, it's on NPR released like the 100 best albums made by women a year or two ago, and it's number 11 on that list. So there's kind of this like critical response to this record that's kind of like, yeah, this is maybe her best, but I personally contend that Jolene is her best record because it includes Jolene and I Will Always Love You, which there's this crazy story of her writing like in the same day, and it's just unbelievable. But yeah, but I think there could be a case that this is her best record because it's her 8th studio album, but it's this precursor to her fully individual thing. Like, there's this great story of her and her leaving Porter Wagner's show and kind of stepping into her own. And I think all of that stuff doesn't happen without the impact of this record.
Yeah.
And it's really sweet.
I think one thing to be said there is everybody knows Jolene. And, the record is big because of that one song. But I think it's significant that this record is higher rated and you don't necessarily know any of the songs from it.
Yeah.
Like popularly,
I mean, it's an incredible album, worth celebrating, still relevant in 2020. Okay, so next category. Who is the MVP of the record?
Definitely Porter Wagner.
Grant, who's the MVP?
I believe that would be Dolly Parton.
Correct.
Wait, are you guys sure?
Pretty sure.
Wait, songwriter and guitarist and lead vocalist.
Let me check.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, just check. Yeah, can you get just check the stats really quickly? Yeah, crumple this. Just run this. Yeah,
crunch the numbers again.
Crunch
them again.
Did you crunch them again?
Yes.
Crunch.
It's Dolly wins.
Dolly wins. Okay. Devil's advocate. Maybe the MVP of this record is Dolly's mom.
Nope. Next question.
Think about it.
I'm sorry. I had that joke queued up before you said something. So
just think about it.
Follow through.
I don't know. Just think about it. If Dolly's mom doesn't show this act of love and motherly affection in creating this coat for Dolly and speaking so much life over her for so long, this record doesn't get made. And she's the primary point of the primary track, opening track of this record, Dolly's favorite song of her career.
Yeah.
There's an argument there.
I feel like this is a great moment to mention that Traveling Man is not an autobiographical song on the record.
Gosh, what if? She's like, I love my mom. She gave me this coat and told me she loved me and was so proud of me. And then she left me. She left me for, oh man, gosh. Yeah.
No, but that's a good point.
Just a thought. Just a little thought. Just a little pushback. But no, Dolly's the MVP. Has to be.
On the record.
On the record, Dolly is MVP.
Wait, are you saying on the record, like not like off the record, or on this album?
On the album
record?
And on the record.
Okay.
On the record.
On the record, Dolly's the MVP.
Most valuable player person, important person.
Porter.
Player.
Yes.
Porter Wagner.
Yes.
Hardly know her. Okay. Is this a Desert Island record for you guys?
Maybe.
Ask me yesterday and I would have said no. But it's kind of growing on me.
I was going to say something similar. I think every time I go back to it, I pick up on more and more things, and it gets better with each re-listen, Yeah. And I think if I'm on a desert island and if I've got 20 albums on a desert island, this honestly might be there.
That is something we need to clarify because
the BBC
last
makes
week,
it 5. So
the what?
The BBC Desert Island Disc show is 5 records.
Okay,
5 records.
Because that's one thing. Because last week we said we would not take that album. It got lost in the surf. We said
right,
failed. And so that was something I wanted to clarify this week, because if I have a crate full of albums
every week, we're just saying, yep.
Yeah, I mean, does it fit in the boat? Sure, strap it on. But yeah,
I think I'm a solid maybe on this.
Yeah.
Good.
Just a solid.
It's
sure,
not your first one in the boat.
Yeah.
But it's on there. This might be a Lost in the Surf one.
I think if I'm thinking like I want an album that reminds me of Tennessee or just home or childhood. Yeah. Not that I listen to this a ton in childhood, but that feeling, I may pick this one.
I think I may actually say yes, just because it varies so much from what I listen to day in and day out that, I mean, good grief. If I only took the 20 albums I listen to consistently, I would go nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Or 5 albums especially.
Yeah.
Like this. It's not getting played.
Palate cleanser.
Right. It's not getting played as frequently.
I love the idea of you listening to like Rage Against the Machine, Primus,
Metallica,
and Dolly Parton.
and but it has to be there because if it's not, then
Dave Matthews, Humphreys McGee, and Dolly Parton.
Well,
I love that.
Yeah, I'm ooching towards a yes
Great.
because
I love that.
It's so listenable.
Yeah,
it really is. It really is.
It's a treasure trove. Like you're just finding more little goodies each time. Which
Nuggets.
And I think if you're on a desert island, there's like the unlikely hero thing you're trying to just speak over yourself and buy into. I love that. You know?
It's true. Yeah.
I think I would miss my mom on a desert island too. So this would make me think of my beloved mama.
Except for track 2.
Okay. Next category. Yeah, touche.
When she turns into Mr. Steal Yo Man.
If I were ever dating someone and my mother ran off with that person, I would just be so confused
and mad.
Multiple levels.
And
angry about the way I was raised, like what I was led to believe as a child that my
mom, you made me this coat of many colors and now you're running off with my man. Oh my goodness. Okay, what track from this record would be on the Forrest Gump soundtrack? What'd you guys say?
Wait, what track would or what track would not be?
Honestly. Yeah, we all said they could kind of maybe all fit in the album because they're so American.
I could find a place for most of them.
What's your pick though? What's your pick, Grant?
My pick actually was well, I had 2.
Okay.
First was Early Morning Breeze. I just felt like it would fit in Forrest Gump when Forrest visits Jenny's grave.
Oh man.
Just like it's kind of somber. It's a quieter track, you know, it's not like vocally loud. I don't know, I felt like it fit there. Also A Better Place to Live, 100%. I mean, anti-war, like the protest scene. I mean, when Forrest and Jenny and Lieutenant Dan are reunited. I mean,
I love that.
Those are my 2.
I mean, it's impossible to say. This might be offensive, but I feel like She Never Met a Man She Didn't Like could go in any scene with Jenny.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That crossed my mind as well.
There's the scene of Jenny leaning over the thing and Freebird's playing and she's just one of those like little montages of her and it could have so easily fit.
Yeah. I would also say Early Morning Breeze when she's getting on the hippie bus.
Yeah.
Leaving Forrest.
My Forrest Gump track from this record is A Better Place to Live. And it's after, so Forrest has fought in Vietnam. He's like went on his long run and he's coming back and he's just doing like menial Greenbow, Alabama things like mowing the grass for the football team and just walking around and kind of like in that montage, he's like, that song is playing and it's just this calmness kind of piece. And it's just really, that's what I was just envisioning. It's just Better Place to Live kind of playing over Forrest's like post-run career.
Yeah. Do you think that's obvious enough for Bob Zemeckis though?
No chance. Well, yeah. All right, great. Okay. Our next 5 Degrees of U2. How do we trace Coat of Many Colors, Dolly Parton, to our beloved Dubliners, the band U2? Grant, do you have a map in your mind connecting Dolly or Coat of Many Colors to?
This was the one where I actually like was thinking really hard. Like the rest of the categories kind of came easily to me for this album. This one, just because they are so different, but I mean, I know it's there.
Oh, I got it. June Carter, Johnny Cash, obviously. U2.
For sure.
They recorded a song together on Zooropa.
Yeah, I had written down, I'm pretty sure Dolly featured on the Johnny Cash show. Johnny Cash show.
So
they could have worked harder on that title.
At the Ryman in the 70s or whenever his show was running. And Johnny Cash recorded a track with U2, which is hilarious. But
So far we've managed from Led Zeppelin and Dolly Parton to U2 in less than 2
3.
moves.
Yeah, 2 moves each time.
And that's what I was getting ready to ask. Do we also want to find like the most roundabout one? You know, like do we want to see if we could actually fill
Make it
all
as
5?
complicated as possible.
Just like a 10-step. Just
Well, we've said 5 degrees. We've said 5 degrees.
5 degrees.
So like if we stick to 5, but like make sure we make
we're
it
trying
5.
to get to 5.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, I would love a Dolly and U2 track. You know, they're both old.
Kind of surprised they haven't done.
I
it
was
yet.
gonna say that sounds like I can just hear Bono like reaching out to Dolly and just being like,
yeah, probably saying something about how he's always loved her music. It's always been a great inspiration to them.
I would love a rattle and hum scene of like Dolly Parton, just like them hanging out with Dolly before
That
or
would
after
actually
a
make
show.
a
That would
lot
be
of sense.
It would make
really
so
cool.
much sense, yeah. Okay, great. Okay, alternate track order. Where are there any things that you guys would shift up if you were to like move around the cuts on this album?
Yeah, I got nothing here.
I really love how it begins and ends.
I'm with you. I think it's great. I think that maybe I would have loved, this is just a thought, I would have loved Early Morning Breeze like at the very beginning into Coat of Many Colors.
I see that.
Because it's just such like a bright opening and it's about the morning. I just think it's like a good opening track. I'm a sucker for a great opening track.
And it is, I kind of like it where it is, but it is strange to have that song amidst this. The rest of the record is about some kind of relational turmoil going on.
Mm-hmm. I thought it would butt up well actually to the last track.
Yeah,
I thought it would butt
Better
up.
Place to Live.
Yeah, to A Better Place to Live.
My only other thought in terms of like alternate track order, and this would like kind of be silly, but one like side A being like all the true autobiographical like songs,
that could be
and
cool.
then one side being more of like the character driven narratives that are not true to Dolly, which probably would be like more positive on one side, more negative on one side. But I do love how it's cut, so I think it's like hard to say it should be changed. But those are just some thoughts.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I think kind of wrapping up, I'd love to talk about, we talked about the legacy of this album, and obviously it was so big for Dolly at the beginning of the 70s, and this kind of gave her some ground to leave Porter and do her own thing, and we've talked about the idea of like her as like a butterfly, but when you guys think about Coat of Many Colors, what does this album mean to you?
Well, again, I've been with it for a week, so it's difficult, but I feel like this is the kind of thing that today's America needs to revisit.
Agreed.
Because there's a lot of like weird relational strife that everyone just kind of deals with. There's obviously Better Place to Live, this call to work with one another, understand one another. Coat of Many Colors is like borderline Facebook clickbait. Like, look how cool this is. You won't believe what happened next, you know? But it's
just a BuzzFeed article.
Yeah. But it's actually just such a great story that I feel like people need to hear that kind of thing right now.
Yeah.
I agree. Grant?
Not even just the album in particular, but just Dolly as a whole. I mean, grew up in East Tennessee. We all grew up in East Tennessee. You know, going to Dollywood. I mean, I knew who Dolly was from a young age. Like I said, my grandmother listened to Dolly a lot. It was actually kind of boring as a child, but but looking back, I really am glad that I was exposed to that and not just pop. I mean, I'm around so many families that just listen to like pop music.
Yeah.
I hate that so much. So I love the variety that it brought to my childhood. And the connection to, you know, to things I grew up doing, like going to Dollywood and knowing that Dolly was from, you know, from a neighboring county.
Yeah.
That was cool for me.
I think the one word I think of is just nostalgia with this record. I think personally, thinking back on trips to Dollywood or growing up with family in a house and everything, it just there's this beautiful gift that Dolly has to honor people and honor family specifically, which I think is lost in a lot of music.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like written off as like, oh, you can't write about how much you love your mom, or which I don't know. I just love that. I think it's really sweet and great. And she's again like owning her humble past and kind of like walking in that and like hitting that full stride, and not she didn't like move to Nashville and become, in my mind, something that she wasn't. She was just authentic and real to who she was, and wore that and like wrote songs about it and performed that. And I think the other thing I think about with this album is just, we talked about just the poetry of Early Morning Breeze and other stuff. There's just this heightened awareness in Dolly's songwriting, which I really, really appreciate. And I think in a lot of modern country music, people sing about what they love and, you know, this was tough about this relationship, but
beer,
Tractors. Truck, all those like silly pandering things, which we're not the first person to hate on that, but there's this just beautifully subtle, heightened awareness where she's acknowledging the things around her, the things from her past, relationships from her past, and she's just celebrating those and allowing those to kind of like influence who she is and her music and her craft and her art. And it's just really sweet and beautiful and colorful.
The thing I love about that too, Preston, is I'm not that acutely aware of my past, like my childhood.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I think that was really cool that years and years down the road, you know, she's writing songs about experiences and things that happened as a child, that I mean, they didn't seem at that age to where I am now. Like there's nothing like sticks out as significant. And I think that's really cool too. I've also not recorded 7 other albums. So like maybe, I don't know, maybe that would come.
I think the world would be a lot better place if people were more aware and honoring, just towards their childhoods, and like they honored the child within, you know. I just think there's something sweet to that. You know, Dolly has this beautiful story of her always wanting to be a musician, and she went out and did that and was the unlikely hero. And she has this like great relationship with childhood Dolly, and she honors childhood Dolly, and it's just really sweet. I think people could benefit from that. You know, she like allowed her dreams to live, and I think that's why, part of the million reasons why like people love Dolly, and she's so unifying and just love centric,
philanthropic. I mean, just she does so much for. What I thought was cool was that, you know, she started off doing so much for East Tennessee and this area, and now it's so huge. I mean, her imagination library is so huge, and I don't know. I'm getting ready to have a kid. Like that's something like important. My friends have benefited from something that somebody just up the road from us started, kind of as
it's beautiful
as a secondary thing to what her her main goal in life was to, you know, be a successful musician, and then here she comes, you know, turn around, give it back.
Yeah, so here we are, 2020, Coat of Many Colors by Dolly Parton. A record released so many years ago is still beautiful, still narratively great, musically achieving, and we love it. It's been such a pleasure talking to you guys this week about Coat of Many Colors by Dolly Parton, one of our new favorite records. And so if you have a chance and haven't already, go back and listen to that. And man, please take a second to subscribe to our podcast and wherever podcasts are found. And please take a second to follow us on social media. You can also find our playlist for this episode on Spotify, kind of including some of those influences we talked about and those legacies. And so, we're super excited and thankful that you took the time to check us out. And we look forward to talking to you next week about Talking Book by Stevie Wonder. So listen up. All right. Signing off. See you, boys. See you, Grant.
See ya.